Hello there, my RPG lovers, and welcome to another video. Gothic Remake is finally out, and I got the chance to play the game a little bit earlier.
Good for you.
I'm still early in the game, at around 15 hours mark, so this is going to be my early review, early impressions, or however you wanna call it. I'm also going to have a big review when I complete one playthrough at least. In my 15 hours with the game so far, I managed to do quite a bit actually, and get a great feel of the gameplay. I played the game on the hard difficulty, so my entire perspective of the game so far is based entirely on that. And just so you know, you won't be able to change the difficulty in the middle of your playthrough. Once you select it in the beginning, that's it. So I did a lot of beginner quests in the old and the new camp, explored a decent chunk of the map, did a ton of fighting and tested new mechanics. I tried fighting as many different NPCs as I could, and even beat up Lefty and the Rice Lord.
Fantastic way to make some friends around here.
But let's start from the beginning. The story in the remake has a couple of extra elements that should make it more interesting, even though it's the same story for the most part. For example, every time you load the game now, you will get to see what happened in the story so far and your general progress. I think it's a very nice touch. The new intro cutscene is cool, but the way it's edited is kind of weird. That could have been much better. I was getting some Arcania vibes from it, which is not good. Putting that aside, the beginning of the game was pretty much exactly what I expected. I started messing around with the controls and tried to get a good feel of the gameplay, and I also spent a lot of time exploring and doing everything in the quote-unquote tutorial zone before moving on. I think I spent almost a full hour in this zone before I finally decided to move on. First of all, the controls are way more responsive, especially compared to that Naira's demo we got to play back in the day. I have no idea how the game felt to play in that recent demo, maybe it was the same like in this version. But this was the first time I was experiencing the updated controls, so it was a massive difference for me. I played with my Xbox controller by the way, but I will test out mouse and keyboard in the full review. Controls for movement, jumping around and grabbing ledges is also seamless, running is not too fast to ruin the exploration, but just enough to give you a small boost and so on. The swimming is still a bit janky, but I know this can be improved as well when you learn the skill for it. Moving around, interacting with things and picking things up is pretty smooth in general. To put it simply, I highly doubt that a lot of people will have issues with the fundamental controls. The combat, however, is everything but smooth in the beginning. That's entirely by design though, in order to put the accent on the character progression. Does that mean it feels bad to play? Well, yeah, but that's kind of a point of the game, which won't be everyone's cup of tea. If you easily get frustrated, it's certainly not a game for you. And if you expect a great combat from the very beginning, also probably not a game for you.
Nothing wrong with that.
I would even argue that the combat in the remake in the beginning feels even more punishing and harder to get used to than in the original game. The original game was janky as all hell, but the gameplay was not slow by any means. The default gameplay of Gothic Remake is much slower, and that might be the biggest issue for even some fans of the series. However, the remake is way more skill-based compared to the original, which changes the gameplay quite a bit, and this kinda balances things out between the remake and the original. So even though the melee combat with untrained weapon skill is very slow, sluggish and janky, you can still manage to win most fights if you utilize the mechanics properly. The system works as intended, is what I'm trying to say, it's just very sluggish in the beginning. The responsiveness is good, but the animations are very slow, you can get stun locked easily or simply killed very fast by most things in a couple of hits. Playing the game like this without learning any weapon skills is doable, but just not worth it, and you should train your character the first chance you get. Learning that first one-handed weapon skill might even change your opinion about the whole game. So if you bought the remake and you don't like the combat, try to get this skill at least before you think of quitting or something. This is pretty much common knowledge to old Gothic fans, but there will be a lot of new people playing a Gothic game for the very first time. So the most important question here is how better it gets after you start progressing through the game and learning these new skills. Is it worth suffering in the beginning and getting killed over and over again? Well, let me just say that I spent a lot of hours fighting enemies without learning any skills. I wanted to get a good feeling of the combat like this and see if the progression system will make it a lot better. I also wanted to test out if you can actually kill most things with the beginner skill level and just push it to the limits. Which I did, and you most definitely can, but it's certainly not worth it, especially on the hard difficulty. Pretty much all NPCs I fought so far have different ways of fighting. I mean, it's usually just a few different hits which are unique to their type, but it's just enough to force you to fight a bit differently. Most human NPCs fight in a similar way, especially weaker and medium challenging enemies. And fighting humans is way different compared to fighting animals and beasts. It's mostly about good positioning, especially with the untrained skill level. I had a hard time learning this, but it made fights way easier when I finally did.
Look, he's still moving.
The game still feels brutal, and you will be scared to fight most things even when you gain a few levels and new skills. But that's a good thing, and I'm glad hard difficulty is actually hard. By the way, I will have my combat guide video soon after I upload this one, so make sure to check that one out as well. It should be really helpful. I think they absolutely nailed the beginning hours of Gothic in terms of feeling weak and almost desperate actually. In fact, I think it's even more brutal compared to the original game, which I honestly didn't expect, not even to the highest difficulty. Now, obviously, even though this is a remake, it's not exactly the same game, so you have to learn how it works. No matter if you're an old Gothic fan who knows everything about Gothic 1 or a new player. It's not just a fresh coat of paint on top of the original or a remaster with new graphics, it's a full-blown remake. It's going to feel very new to everyone, despite the fact that OG fans will know what to expect from the game. It's a huge advantage, obviously, but you're not going to blast through the game just because of that advantage. Even though the remake follows the same rules as the original very faithfully, it plays differently. So it's not going to play like a 25 plus years old game, and if that's the experience you're looking for, you're obviously going to be disappointed. Once again, I'm playing on hard, and maybe other difficulties are way different. But on this difficulty, the game really doesn't mess around. I was worried they will try to make the game easier in general in order to appeal to a wider audience, but that's definitely not the case here. I'm also surprised that the game only allows you to choose the difficulty in the beginning of the game. Come to think of it, I like that design decision, but I can easily see how some people will hate it. That being said, the remake has very similar mechanics to the original game and the same design philosophy, which was to be expected. But it also has new mechanics and gameplay features which affect the overall gameplay experience quite a bit. Whether you like this or not will depend on a couple of different things, like the general look of the game, animations, and more importantly, how it feels to play, which I already discussed quite a bit. To go back to it, the combat encounters become much more manageable after increasing your skills. It becomes faster, all actions are more responsive, the combo is better, you get a critical chance and a parry mechanic. All of that from learning a single weapon leveling up skill. The block mechanic is much more useful now, and unlike in the original, you can actively hold the block button. It's a game changer in the remake, it's very useful in all fights. I did not expect that you will unlock so many different things by simply improving a single weapon skill. And this seems to be the case with other playstyles as well, like for the bow. For some reason I thought you have to unlock everything you see on the screen here individually, but no. You get all of this at once when you learn it for the first time. Improving the one-handed skill drastically changes the combat, it's almost like you're playing a different game. Getting the parry mechanic is a game changer as well. Like I said before, all enemies have different attacks, which means that the parry window is a little bit different for everyone. I was afraid the parry is going to be very exploitable, but so far it doesn't seem to be the case. It's very useful when you pull it off, because enemies get stunned, which gives you some free hits. I'm really liking the new skill-based moves and learning how different enemies fight. There is a steep learning curve for sure, but now I'm starting to really enjoy being able to kill most of these enemies that gave me a lot of trouble before. And if that's not a strong Gothic-like feeling, I don't know what it is. If you're an old Gothic 1 fan, I would even suggest trying to play on hard. Everyone else should stick with Gothic difficulty or even novice, to be honest. I have no idea how those work, but I have to say that I changed my opinion about the difficulties in this game. I had some critiques and concerns about this in my previous video about the remake, but not anymore. Although I still believe that most similar games should only have one universal difficulty, but in this case, it seems like it was a good decision to include them. As I always say in my videos, I have to try things out for myself before I can properly judge something. That being said, the biggest challenge I had in fights so far is simply trying to isolate a single enemy from a group. Fighting a single enemy in the early game is challenging enough, but multiple enemies at once are almost impossible. This makes the game 1,000 times harder, which makes sense, and it's like a little minigame when you're trying to isolate enemies. It almost turns the combat into a little puzzle that you have to solve. The ranged gameplay with the bow is going to be your best friend in the beginning, especially if you want to avoid some of these issues with the beginner melee combats. Most enemies are quick to close the gap between you and them, so you will be forced to use melee weapons regardless. I tried testing out the combat AI for NPCs quite a bit, and apart from some problems I saw like a disappearing wolf, the combat AI works pretty good. For example, check out how this wolf is quick to catch me, even though he has to jump on a different platform. This gives me hope for the AI system in general, and from everything I could see so far about the combat AI, it looks pretty good. You can still try to cheese some of these fights by using the terrain to your advantage. I could just spam my arrows from up here and probably kill the lurker, but it's very slow and it quickly gets boring. Situations like this won't be extremely common though, simply because the terrain is not the same everywhere. You won't always find these cliffs and rocks that you can abuse with ranged gameplay. And if the situation is not as extreme as this one, most of the time the enemy AI will catch up to you, like I said before. It also depends on the enemy type, which is pretty cool. However, there are some issues with the AI, especially in camps. They can just be very slow to react to your actions. It's not like they don't work properly, it's just very slow. Not all of the time, but it happens quite a bit. Alchemia seems to be fully aware of this issue and they will probably work on it. I also had some performance issues in the new camp when a lot of NPCs were trying to react to my actions. Actions of me being a douchebag, of course. I also had a few hard crashes which would freeze up my whole PC, but Alchemia also provided a list of known issues with the review builds, so I assume they're going to work on those problems in future patches. Or maybe even a day 1 patch, I have no idea. The performance of the game was pretty good on my PC, apart from those issues I mentioned. I'm playing the game on 1440p with a mix of high and medium settings, with DLSS unbalanced I believe. And as you can see from the majority of clips, the performance is fine for me for the most part. The game has pretty good voice actors, which makes the story of Gothic seem more serious this time around.
There's a guy in the swamp camp who goes by the name Kalam. He's a core. I mean, one of the top dogs. He's also an alchemist.
English voice acting was pretty bad in the original, but over the years it became interesting just because of that. Nevertheless, the characters have great voice actors now. More importantly, their personalities are easily recognizable, and I'm really enjoying the dialogue so far. A lot of quests I did are basically identical to the original game, which is a good thing, while some other quests are tweaked a little bit and there are some new quests to be found. What makes the same content different in a way is the map. Again, it's pretty similar to the original, but you will find new areas and things to see. For example, I think the environmental storytelling in the remake is very good so far. But overall, the story and quests feel like good old Gothic, which is a good sign. We'll talk about this a lot more in the complete review.
You don't say.
I was really curious about the graphics in this remake. They always looked passable to me, but I was never that impressed with the visuals. Well, after playing it, I have to say that the game looks very good in general. The new weather effects, the day and night cycle, and just the atmosphere in general is top notch. The weather can change some scenes drastically in the best way possible. It's almost like you're exploring a different map. A lot of indoor areas can be pretty dark and annoying without a light source. That's not an issue for me because that's what I usually prefer, but I don't like how torches work in this game. That's because your character is always in a battle-ready position when carrying a torch, for some reason. I can't find a way to carry the torch normally, it's like you're holding a weapon. So I accidentally smacked a lot of NPCs in the head and got in trouble for it, it's really annoying. But yeah man, the remake creates an amazing gloomy atmosphere and it was very enjoyable to explore the world so far. And I'm guessing it will only get better, at least I hope so. And that would sum up my early impressions of the game.
Good for you.
I will have a complete review soon-ish and more videos about the remake and also stream the game, so stick around for that. Anyway, tell me your opinion about the remake in the comments below and do you plan to get it or not? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. And if you want to go a step further, consider supporting your boy by becoming a YouTube channel member or a Patreon. Huge thanks to all my current supporters and I'll see ya in the next one.